This isn't on Patricia's. Isn't it?
That?
There you
Okay.
go. Yep.
Thank you. Good to have experience with that.
Yes, yes.
People floating. It would be nice if the whole place were full, but. I know. At least we got a few. Yeah.
I'm cold. Y'all cold? Yeah, it's a little cold, but the windows aren't open. They usually open them. I make them close them.
I know you do.
Oh, because that's there.
Yeah, we're about ready to start.
Make sure my phone is off.
I know, that's what I had to check.
Okay. That looks like Kathy Davis. That lady out there looks like Kathy Davis.
Black lady? Oh, no, that's my cousin.
Oh, okay. She looked just like her.
Oh.
With the mask up.
Okay.
So this part is televised so people can.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Put my glasses on so I can see.
I think we're ready to begin if you want to take seats. Welcome to the forum for candidates running in the upcoming special election for the City Council seat in the 2nd Ward. My name is Jennifer O'Neill, and I'm part of the voter services team of the Evanston League. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization dedicated to promoting the active and informed participation of citizens in government, sponsors these events as a service to the community. The League of Women Voters neither endorses nor opposes candidates for public office. Turning to today's forum, city councilors serve 4-year terms. We welcome the 3 candidates, Darlene Cannon, Patricia Gregory, and Chrissy Harris. This forum is being recorded, and a link will be made available on the League's website at lwve.org. I do want to take a moment to thank the city, and especially Clerk Mendoza, for providing the space and services for today's forum. Our moderator today is Gilda Carew. She has been a member of the League of Women Voters since 1976, when she joined in Ocean County, New Jersey. She's been a member of the League of Women Voters of the Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, Buffalo Grove area since the early 1980s and has served as president and in several other positions. Gilda is the daughter of refugees from Estonia and is currently the deacon pastor of the First Estonian Evangelical Lutheran Church of Chicago. She's also a retired federal employee and attorney and served as a mediator for the Chicago Federal Executive Board. So, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and welcome everybody to today's forum. It's nice to see that you've come out on this beautiful sunny day and part of the President's Day weekend to become better informed about who the candidates are, and so that you can be an informed elector. I'd like to review the ground rules today. First of all, please put any kind of phones or devices that you have on a do not disturb or mute or even turned off mode so that there are no interruptions during the forum. As Jennifer said, this is a nonpartisan event, so we do not allow wearing buttons for candidates or anything that would support or go against a candidate. I As Jennifer mentioned, I do not live in Evanston. I'm from Arlington Heights, so I do not have an interest, a personal interest or stake in this election. We're asking you to submit questions on cards. We've got our question takers there. They've got a file cards. So if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. They'll come and give you a card. And then afterwards, once you've written your question down, they will come and collect it from you. Our question sorters will be looking at the questions to combine things that are similar, and so that we don't waste time asking the same question over and over again. And we also ask that all questions be phrased in a way that they can be answered by all candidates. We will weed out any questions that are directed toward a specific candidate. We want all of the candidates to be able to answer them. Also, please refrain from applauding or making any sounds of support or against any candidate. We'll do the applause at the end of the forum. As Jennifer mentioned, the forum will be taped, and the order in which the candidates will give their opening statements was determined by having their names on paper, and I drew them, and they'll be going in the order of Chrissy Ward, Patricia Gregory, and Darlene Cannon, and at the end, that will be reversed. The candidates agree to all of the rules of this forum. We have 2-minute opening statements for each candidate, up to 2 minutes. And then there will be questions, as many as we can fit in within the time frames, so that each candidate will have up to 90 seconds or a minute and a half to answer the questions. And then all of the candidates will have up to 2-minute closing statements. They will be timed. We have our 2 timers here, Katie and Lisa, who will be start the timer when the candidate starts speaking after I've asked the question, and they will hold up placards. There is a 15-second warning, a 30-second warning. 30 obviously comes first, 30, 15, and then stop. And we would ask the candidates to stop speaking, so at 15, to start wrapping up your remarks. And I will interrupt, unfortunately, for you once the stop sign is held up. So please try to adhere to that. And this forum has been publicized, and again, we will have it available starting hopefully tomorrow through the League's website. So again, thank you all for coming today. And with that, we'll begin our forum with opening statements. And the first opening statement will be given by Chrissy Harris. Ms. Harris, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So first I want to say thank you all so much for spending your Saturday here. My name is Chrissy Harris. I've been born and raised in Evanston, lived here except for when I went to college, and 3 years in Wisconsin, but was still very active in Evanston. I consider myself to be an advocate of Evanston all of my life. I attended the original King Lab on Foster and was part of the students that had to be relocated on Lake Street. And I did a sit-in at 8 years old. I wasn't having it. We did end up moving, but that is when I learned that my voice was important, that other people's voices were important. As long as I've been in Evanston, I have been engaged. I have been on the board of the YWCA. I have been on the board of Family Focus. I have been on the board of the NAACP North Shore. I have been part of the Negro Women Council in the Chicagoland area. We don't have a branch in Evanston, but we're thinking about trying to get one on the North Shore. I'm an active member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated for almost 35 years, and we are an action-oriented social service sorority. I have worked with Evanston Township on their disciplinary board. I'm at Oakton Community College, and in December I will be celebrating 25 years of uninterrupted service there, where I held many positions with the union, with the different institutions. I'm a graduate of a proud graduate of Illinois State University Redbirds, where I hold a bachelor's in construction and a master's in higher education administration. So I look forward to continuing to serve the city in the way that I have, and working with residents and constituents, not only in the second ward, but throughout the whole city. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next opening statement is from Patricia Gregory. Ms. Gregory, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you all for coming. This is really nice. And thank you all for hosting this. I was born here in Evanston at the community hospital that's no longer there. I saw the dismantling of the Fifth Ward with the school that I went to, Foster School. Then I ended up at Lincolnwood School, Haven, and then Skiles, which is no longer Skiles anymore. It's King Arts. And then I went on to ETHS and graduated. I saw the dismantling of the Fifth Ward in that the hospital was gone, then the school, then we had a grocery store right on Emerson and Dodge, and then that went away. Up on Church and Dodge, we had record store, there was a grocery store, Norm's grocery store, there was also Sinclair's gas station right there on Darrow and Church. Across the street, they had a laundromat. So they had a lot in that area, and I cannot forget C&W Barbecue. That was the best barbecue in Evanston. Mm-hmm. So going to ETHS, my class was the start of the Pom Pom Squad. That started back in the mid-'70s. My mom was the person who made all the dresses, and then we had other parents. And so when I look at our community, I look at our youth, and I think as an educator, it's important. I've dealt with children from all facets and parents of all facets of life, and I think it's really important for us to have programs for those children to make sure. We have a lot going on in society now with gun issues, violence. So I look forward to really working with youth and continuing the work that these great aldermen that we've had in the past have started.
Thank you. Our final opening statement is from Darlene Cannon. Ms. Cannon, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having this event today, and thank you for having me. My name is Darlene Cannon. I am born and raised in Evanston. I've lived outside of 6 months my entire life in the second ward. So I've seen the dramatic change in demographics that has happened in the second ward and throughout Evanston. I am a community advocate. I have worked on numerous boards. I'm currently a board member of CMP, Citizens Network of Protection. I'm a board member of the Democratic Party of Evanston, and I am also during the pandemic, at the early on part of the pandemic, I started a non-profit called Feeding the Village Evanston, in which for about a year and a half, we provided food to families from District 65 and beyond, families who during the time of the pandemic were food insecure. One of the reasons why I am running is because I do see the rapid change in demographics. I see the increase in home prices, so that equates to the lack of affordability, and I believe that the city of Evanston could be more fiscally responsible, because our budget and how we spend our money should be a reflection of our beliefs. So I've worked at District 202 in the special education department, and currently I'm a substitute teacher in District 65. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to the question and answer portion of the forum, and we will take turns answering the questions. So the same person is not always answering first or second or third. And the first question will be answered first by Patricia Gregory. And the question is, what issues, specific or unique to your ward, need to be addressed by the council? How will you balance the needs of your constituents in the second ward with the needs of the city? And you've got a minute and a half.
Okay, thank you. With that question, as I canvassed the ward, some of the concerns are with small businesses, that we have a lot of businesses leaving downtown Evanston, and because the second ward stretches that far, you have a lot of concerned citizens that we don't have enough businesses, the businesses are leaving. I think addressing that with the council is very important because they have a financial need. They have the financial responsibility of making sure that our city thrives. So I would, as alderperson, make sure that we have meetings talking about this, seeing how we could build that. Another issue, too, that's important to specifically to the ward is parking. They have people that come and park and leave their cars for 3 months and then come back, or residents that don't even live in the ward will park their cars. So it's really important to those members, because the ward is so big and every neighborhood has different needs, it's important to try to address those needs and bring it to the council, the ones that you need to.
Thank you. Same question, Darlene Cannon.
Yes, thank you. So, can you repeat the question, please, to make sure I answer it correctly?
What issues, specific or unique to your ward, need to be addressed by the council? How will you balance the needs of your constituents in the second ward with the needs of the city?
Yes, okay, thank you. So as I've, knocked on doors and also talked to small businesses, I'm hearing the issues are the lack of affordability. We're increasing fees, our taxes are going up, and in many cases in particular with our small businesses, they're not in touch with whom they need to talk to in order to get the assistance that they need. We're still in the recovery process from COVID. So we need to make sure that, resources are available, that our residents as well as our business owners know what resources we have available for them so that we can help them. I also have talked to residents, and I think this applies across citywide, that the people are concerned about parking, in particular parking downtown Evanston. It has been rapidly increasing, and residents as well are concerned about the downtown. Growing up here, I remember what downtown was, and I see what it is now. And just ensuring that we can make sure that our small businesses and the residents of Evanston are getting what they need so that they can continue to stay here in Evanston.
Thank you. And same question, Chrissy Harris.
Yes, thank you so much. So I have the privilege of right now serving the community, so I get emails on a daily basis. And the main things that hit my desk on a regular basis are safety, that there are concerns about the safety of the second ward. We have an element that has come to our community that is not welcome, and trying to figure out how to make sure that they understand that they're not welcome here and that we're dealing with that internally. I'm meeting with the police chief. We have 2 community police officers, Officer Galindo and Officer Brooks, where we're on email or on the phone every 2 weeks, really, unless things come up, trying to figure out the safety issue, making sure that our residents feel safe and know how to, because it's a community effort. It isn't just the police. It's a community effort in which we all take ownership in our safety and what we do. One of the other things that I hear about is because we are the most economically and racially diverse area, what does that look like? I get calls about speed bumps. So we have a lot of speeding, unfortunately, in the second ward, especially by the high school. So dealing with that and that goes along with the safety issues. I think taxes are an ongoing issue for our community, making sure that our ETHS and District 65, which fall.
Thank you very much. Our next question will be answered first by Darlene Cannon, and I'd like to remind the audience to submit questions if there are things on your mind, or if you hear anything that sparks a question, please raise your hand, and one of the people will bring over a card for you. Okay, the question, and again, Darlene Cannon will answer first, is the second ward will probably lose some area and some population through redistricting. Do you have suggestions for possible changes? Do you have concerns about the impact of redistricting on the ward?
Thank you. Yes, we probably will, because we're over I think it's either 800 or 1,000 people. And I think that we need to be mindful of where we make the changes, what parts of the ward we make those changes. And, you know, it's really critical that before we make any final changes, that we get as much community input. And if we're targeting a certain part of the ward, that we get those people who live in those areas, we get their input as to, you know, why we would be moving them out of the second ward into another ward, possibly the fifth ward, I'm assuming, because they're short on people. And just making sure that, you know, we are doing what's, you know, best for our constituents and for the city as a whole. So, thank you.
Thank you. Same question to Chrissy Harris.
So thank you for the question. I'm trying to find the map on my phone. There's a lot of things that I carry around with me now in my new position. We've had a redistricting meeting when the second ward alderperson seat was vacant. And once I took seat, I asked for another meeting where there was council representation to help the community understand what the changes may be, what they may look like, and making sure that the community had a voice in that discussion. We held that discussion last week. It was a public meeting. There were actually a few people in the audience today that came last week. Thank you for being here again. So it's important to get input from all of the residents, and that includes the residents that surround the second ward, not just the second ward, how it affects them, what representation looks like, why the changes need to be made. We're about 571 people, if I'm correct. I couldn't find it fast enough on my phone, but it's about 571 residents at this time. The census happens every 10 years, so we know that that will change again in 10 years because we have some high rises that are comprised in the second ward. So it's important to get representation, not just from the second ward, primarily from the second ward, but from all of the neighboring communities and what that looks like.
Thank you. And the question will now be answered by Patricia Gregory.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for that question. What I'm thinking is that it makes sense, only because on one side of the street it's one ward, and you cross the other side and it's another ward, and then you cross another street and it's another ward. And to bring those wards closer together, it makes sense to me. I think, though, you must always have community input from the people that this is going to affect. Because if you don't and you make these changes, it could just be miserable for everyone. So I think a community meeting for this would be great. I welcome it because I know it can be really confusing the way the map is split and the way things are going. So I'm for it.
Thank you. Our third question will be answered first by Chrissy Harris, and the question is, what actions, if any, do you think the City Council should take to support the business community, especially small businesses?
Sorry, I was writing a question. I think it's incumbent for us as a community to support these businesses, to make sure people know about the businesses. A lot of times people don't even know new businesses or existing businesses are there, so helping promote. We do have an economic development committee that sends out newsletters, so I always encourage everybody to go to the Evanston webpage and sign up for these type of informational pieces that will be sent to you at no cost, so sign up for 311. I think financially, it is our duty to help support these businesses appropriately so that there aren't any improprieties, there isn't favoritism happening, but promoting, making sure the city is making sure our legislation is helping these businesses, because we are coming back out of COVID, and a lot of businesses were ravished. The community was ravished by this. So making sure that we support them, whether that's economically, through support of advertising, of helping them find grants, because there are grants available to different businesses depending on what it is, and supporting them fully. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, Patricia Harris. I'm sorry, Patricia Gregory, same question.
Oh, thank you. That was a good breaker there. No, so what I think I agree with Chrissy on that issue, that promoting businesses is very important. I've talked to a few business owners that are struggling coming out of COVID and are thinking about maybe leaving, and I know that there's a lot of businesses that have left the area. So I think promotion is really good, and any funds that the city may have to help these businesses, I really would encourage them to do that, because some of these businesses are really good businesses. They've been around for years, and the community can really use some of these businesses that are leaving. So I think the city can help promote, and also maybe help some of these small businesses find loans, maybe have maybe a conference where they can all come together and kind of share these things, because most people don't know. Most small business owners do not know that there's grants out there for them. So maybe that's something that the city could help with as well.
Thank you. And the final answer on this question is from Darlene Cannon.
Yes, thank you. So we have now a program called Legacy Businesses, and that's for businesses, I believe, that have been here for at least 20 years. So making sure that our small businesses are aware that there is a group that meets, I think, at least twice a month, and that's a starting point where they can go and get information about being a legacy business, and they can also reach out and find out from our economic development team about getting financial assistance as well. I think we could do things as a city by, promoting businesses, even, like with our movie theater. How do we get people back there? We can promote it. We could have events there as well. I think that we should designate a certain amount of ARPA funds for small businesses to help them get back on track. And I think the most important thing is talking to the businesses and asking them what they need in order to be successful. Clearly, before the pandemic, they were successful. So we need to be looking at, listening to them and finding out what they need for them to get back on track.
Thank you very much. Our fourth question will be answered first by Patricia Gregory. And the question is, the second ward is a diverse mix of people, diverse economic circumstances, different races, education levels, etc. How concerned are you to represent and listen to all constituent concerns?
I'm not really concerned at all. I'm a teacher, work in the school district. I've been teaching for over 25 years, and in that setting as well, it's the same, has the same racial, socioeconomic makeup. So I don't have a problem working with people on their issues. I think the most important thing is issues. what's going on, what's affecting them, and being able to represent them. And because I've done it for the past 25 plus years, I think that it would work fine for me.
Thank you. Same question, Darlene Cannon.
Yes. So I would not have a problem. I am used to, working with people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, and I think that the diversity that we have in the second ward is the same throughout the entire city. We have a diverse group of people with different ethnic backgrounds, with different financial backgrounds. And, I am an organizer, and I'm used to talking to people and trying to address their needs and their concerns. So I'm a good listener, and yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And the final answer to this question from Chrissy Harris.
Thank you. I see no concerns. I, much like Patricia, have done this work for many years. I have substance abuse counseling certificate. I have a human resource certificate. I have a minor in family practice for counseling. So that's what I do. I believe I like to tell stories, and I like to hear things and relate them to people in story form so that it doesn't feel as intrusive. I've worked with college-age students for over 30 years, having been one, and understanding the needs of many, even of one, usually translates to many. So that does not intimidate me. I encourage that. It is important. We are the most diverse racially at this point, and that's something to be proud of. We are what Evanston, the whole of Evanston is. So that does not intimidate me. I hope it doesn't intimidate anyone to come talk to me about their issues and concerns, because everybody's issue is very valid to them and should be heard and should be addressed and looked at on a total level, not just the individual level.
Thank you. Our fifth question will be answered first by Darlene Cannon, and it's almost like a follow-up to the question you just answered. But the question is, how do you plan to communicate with residents? Will you have in-person ward meetings? How will you get to know constituents who have opposing views from yours?
Thank you. So, yes, I do plan on having monthly ward meetings. I would like them to be hybrid so that we could have in person, but also have it available on Zoom so that people can have access to it. I think that, and also we should have it translated in different languages as well. I think that I would still, continue to go out and meet residents. And I would want to meet with block clubs and have office hours so that I can meet with individuals and just continue to engage with the community. I think that often a lot of people are not on email or on the internet, so we probably need to do some mass mailings to, pull those people in that we're missing, to get them involved in what's going on in the ward and making sure that we have an understanding of what their needs, wants, and desires are for the ward as well. So.
Thank you. Chrissy Harris, same question.
Thank you. So I think it's important to meet people where they are. So, of course, the monthly ward meetings, when I first got appointed, I had them in person because I knew if you didn't know who I was, you wanted to see who I was and understand who I was. So I had them the first two in person. We then have moved to hybrid because I was concerned about the weather of January, February. So I didn't want residents out in the elements, though the elements are unpredictable, as we see. I think it should be both. I think it should be hybrid and in person. I think meeting people, answering emails and phone calls, There's been times where I was sick in the bed and I got an email, and within 10 minutes I arrived to make sure people got what they needed. I think we have to be accessible. We have to be relevant. We have to be present for our residents. That's what we were selected for. So meeting people where they are, whether that's being present, email, mail, phone calls. We have to be open to that. And while they say it's a part-time job, it's a job and a half. And we have to be prepared for that.
Thank you. Patricia Gregory?
Yes, thank you. And I agree wholeheartedly with Chrissy. That's so important. I am a people person, so I like to think outside the box. So monthly ward meetings, newsletters, mailings are great, but some people, they still don't get that. So it's important to get out, knock on doors, maybe have a group of people where, they check on each other, and you check on them and make sure that they've checked on. I haven't heard from this person. What do they think about this? I think that's really important. And as far as people not agreeing with me, I love to be around people that don't agree with me. I think it's great, because then I don't think that I'm always right. And every man is right in his own eye. However, if you have someone and they have a different opinion than you, that gives you the opportunity to see something a little different. And then maybe you can come together with a happy medium. I like to agree to disagree, but to come out with the outcome being where, we agree on some happy medium and we can move forward on that. I don't look at opposition as a negative. I look at it as a positive, so that you're heard, I'm heard, and then we can move on. Because that's all some people who oppose you want to know, is that, did you hear me?
Thank you. Our sixth question will be answered first by Chrissy Harris. And the question is, what can be done to have Evanston become more fiscally responsible? And Ms. Harris, the question is answered first by you, please.
Yes, thank you. I just want to write it down because I missed an integral part of that other question, so I want to be clear. I have the full question, so thank you. Making Evanston more fiscally responsible. That comes with understanding what the needs are, and that's a sliding scale. We have the pandemic has shown us that prices have changed, services have changed. We need to be very accountable when we enter into a contract, that we are making sure the contractors are living up to what they want, what we've asked them to do, and if not, holding them accountable. I think we for the most part use the bid system, so that usually gives us the lowest bid for the city, and that isn't always what people want to see, but it's the system in which we have to use to do things. I think we all are trying to be fiscally sound with the finances that we receive, and I need everybody to understand that of Evanston dollar, every dollar, the city only gets 17 cents of that dollar. Most people believe we get the whole 100 pennies. We get 17 of those pennies to make things happen in this community. And so we have to make sure we're guardians of that 17 cents, and do things right and do them, what do they say, measure twice, cut once. So we have to do that with our budget.
Thank you. Patricia Gregory, same question.
I agree with Ms. Harris on that one. What we do need to do is make sure that everything is equitable and it is clear and concise. What happens sometimes is people don't get the whole information about what's going on and what their responsibility is to this. And so we do have a lot of confusion when it comes to responsibility and who's responsible for what. I think it's very important for people to be transparent, for our city to be transparent as to what our responsibilities are, what their responsibilities are, because if not, that's where you have a lot of confusion.
Thank you. And Darlene Cannon, same question?
Thank you. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. What can be done to have Evanston become more fiscally responsible?
Okay, thank you. So as an older person, you are the guardian of the budget, and our budget is supposed to be a moral document. I see that we use a lot of city funds for consultants. So what can we do to cut back on that? When we look at our most recently, the street cleaning firm, they were the highest bidder, and they're out of New York. So what could we do to stimulate the economy locally to see if there's someplace in Evanston or Chicagoland area? And I think we need to go over the budget to ensuring that we are spending the city's funds that's for the betterment of everyone in this community. We spend a lot of money. Unfortunately, we've wasted a lot of funds. We spent $9 million on James Park when we were told by our legal team at $100,000 that we couldn't win the case, but yet we wasted $9 million of the taxpayers. So, as I said, go over the budget, make sure that we are being fiscally responsible and that we're not wasting the hard-earned funds of the taxpayers of Evanston.
Thank you very much. The next question will be answered first by Patricia Gregory. And the question is, are there any procedural changes that you would suggest to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the council?
Wow, that's a big question. I think first I'd have to be in there and really look at what's being done procedurally, and then make suggestions for change. That's a big question, and a lot of things are going on in the city. So that's what I would probably do. I would have to know the issues in order to change procedure on what's happening, what's going on. Because sometimes where you think that something could be better, it's probably as good as it has been. It's probably been done in the past before. I think it's important to always be informed so that when it's time to change a procedure, you know exactly what you're doing. Some people just change because they heard somebody say something, not because they truly believe that this needs to be changed.
Thank you. Darlene Cannon?
Yes, thank you. So there's a couple of things. I think that when Thursday or Friday rolls around, council gets a packet anywhere from 500 to 1,000 pages. And I think that often people are not able to be prepared to read all of that and be well versed in everything that is being brought forward. In addition to that, when we have our council meetings, people come up and they give public comment and then they walk away. And often residents don't get their questions answered. So how can we as a council make sure that our residents are heard? It's very important. We have a lot of boards. We have some boards that are critical that are inactive. We have the Disability Board and the Board on Aging. So what can we do to make sure that those we have people who are meeting on a regular basis and making sure that they are addressing some of the needs of those people, our residents in that community as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And Chrissy Harris?
So there are always changes to be made. We're a people of evolution. As I came in, and I appreciate you saying you try to get in first to understand, because that's important. As I said, I'm a storyteller, and I believe the Wizard of Oz showed us that what you see on one side of the curtain is not always what's on the other side of the curtain, that there are other things happening, mechanisms moving. So it's important to understand what's going on. Sometimes it does seem very discombobulated, but that's because there's a lot of moving parts. And I think some cases we need to slow down, some cases we need to move forward. When I first got on, I come from an educational background, so I'm like, how do we judge these? And I don't mean judge in a sense of this is good or this is bad, but how do we rate these? And do we have a system in place where when we do that, we can always fall back to that? Because accountability and transparency is so important to me. I always want my reputation to stay in place when I leave the room. So having matrix and rubrics that say, this is how we voted on this is why, these were the issues or the cues that we had to make decisions based on, that we can always go back to, is important. So can we improve things? Most definitely. Are things broken? No, there's cracks, but we can shore those up with collective working together and the city supporting and giving their input.
Thank you. Our next question will be answered first by Darlene Cannon. And the question is, how would you support those experiencing homelessness in the ward and in Evanston generally? What is your position on the use of the Margarita Inn?
Okay. So I'm a strong believer that housing should be a right. So with that being said, I think that we need to make sure that, we're going to use the Margarita, and we need to make sure that the residents that live there, that we're taking care of them with care and dignity, and making sure that they're getting the proper services that they need, whether they need supportive services, whether they need drug counseling or alcohol counseling, making sure that we're getting them the help that they need so that they can, live there and then transition to other housing, in more independent, supportive housing. And I think that, those are the main things, making sure that they're there, that they have what it is that they need, that we also have options available for them to work. We can work with local organizations to see if we can get them employed, because basically we want to make sure that we work to make them whole again and that they can be productive, in this community as well. So,
Thank you. Chrissy Harris?
Thank you. Patricia and I were just saying this is a big question, has a lot of implications. Nationally, homelessness is an issue. Again, the pandemic showed us our weaknesses as a United States, and so Evanston is experiencing it as well. I'm uncomfortable talking about the Margarita Inn. As everybody knows, we're under injunction, and I'm not comfortable. I don't know what that means, so I don't want to break any laws. But I think homelessness is an issue. In Second Ward, we have a HOW unit, and I've been over there. And when it first got there, we were not excited about it. Our community was not excited. And once I became the alderperson, I went over there, and I've been working with them. And one of the main things that they talk about is dignity, that we have to treat people with dignity and find spacing. In Evanston, we need to change zoning, because homelessness is not just the 2nd, 8th, and 5th Ward issue. It's an Evanston issue, and we have to change some of our zoning to accommodate the issues that we see before us. So we all, again, have to pitch in. It isn't a ward issue, it's a city issue, it's a national issue. And any issue, if you are true to it, will be dealt with dignity, care, and with community input.
Thank you. And Patricia Gregory?
Homelessness is worldwide, and it hits Evanston pretty hard. And it really hit me one summer when I was looking for my keys. I thought that maybe one of the kids had thrown it in the canal because I had a key finder. So I'm going around, and I went down under the canal part, and there were beds there, like people were really living there. Cups, mirrors, it was all set up, and I'm like, this is crazy. Then a few weeks after that, they found somebody dead under the bridge by Howard Street. So that really touched home. And then as an educator, we have a lot of homeless students. And so I had an experience with, I went to a meeting with the Connection of the Homeless at the Margarita. And I listened to them, and the program sounded fabulous, fantastic. However, I had experienced taking a family there, and it was awful the way that the person treated them at the door. So after they gave their big spiel, which sounded really nice, I let them know that the program sounds good, but it's not working for everybody. And maybe the setting that you have these people in, should be in another setting, especially that you deal with mental illness, you're dealing with people with the drug abuse. It's very important to have them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question will be answered first by Chrissy Harris. And the question is, would you support changes to the zoning codes that would allow for more types of housing in R1 single-family residential districts?
I think if Evanston wants to be true to what we say, then we do have to look at zoning, and I mentioned that before the question even came. Making accommodations throughout all of Evanston so that there's not one community saturated with anything. We all have to share our burdens. We have to share our resources. We are separated by air. It's a simple thing that separates us, and we need to look at our zoning, our community, what are the stressors placed in certain communities, and how do we levy that across the whole community, which is Evanston. I think everybody is open to that. It just, it hadn't been thought about in those terms. So I am very supportive of looking at our zoning to be appropriately relieving burdens, not creating burdens.
Thank you. Patricia Gregory?
Yes, and I agree. I think it's very important that we distribute this equitably throughout the city and not just located in one area. Zoning is very important, and I would support it 100%.
Thank you. And Darlene Cannon.
Yes, thank you. So, yes, zoning is important, and I also agree that we need to make sure that we have different types of housing throughout the entire city, and that we don't saturate one part of town with a certain type of housing. So, anything that we can do to increase affordable housing, and, whether it's rentals or home ownership, that's throughout Evanston, I think is critical at this point to ensure that people are able to stay here in Evanston. So.
Thank you. And the next question will be answered first by Patricia Gregory. And the question is, how do you feel about Northwestern University's plans for Ryan Field? Do you feel this is good for the city?
Well, I looked at the plan that they have to, I think it's 2033, and how much revenue that Ryan Field will generate by then. But what I'm really concerned about is the maintenance. Not the maintenance of Ryan Field, but, the traffic that comes back and forth. Who's going to be responsible? Streets. We're talking about parking. I didn't canvass the whole area, but I just talked to a few residents in that area who have great concern about parking. So, it won't affect me because I don't live in that area, but as an Evanston resident, I think that it would be very important for Northwestern to have a conversation with the residents around in that area and really take to heart how they feel, because they will be the most affected by this.
Thank you. Darlene Cannon?
Yes. So in regards to the stadium, I think again we should be leaning on the residents who live in that area. We should be trying to gain as much understanding as we can about as possible as how what their concerns are and how they're going to be impacted by it. We should also be leaning on the businesses in that area to see right now, as it stands, are they getting a lot of foot traffic? With the current number of games or events that they have, and what are their concerns? I think about the additional burden that we'll be putting on our police department, and then as well as our fire department too, and our infrastructure as well. So I think all of those things need to be number one priorities when we think about them and the new stadium. So,
Thank you. And Chrissy Harris?
Thank you. So this is a hot topic right now on the council. Daily emails, daily calls. I think it's important to make sure all voices are heard. And we know impact studies have been done, and there's been a call for other ones. So we're doing that as a city. The first consultant that we asked, we found issue with, so we're now back to the drawing board with that. This directly impacts the 7th Ward, but it affects the city in its whole totality. So all of the council has to work together to make educated decisions, to work with Northwestern University to see what the end game is and how do we come to that consensus together. What changes need to be made on both sides of it. Again, there's a lot that goes into this discussion that isn't always publicly known. But I don't think the city or Northwestern have issues having those discussions often with more people at the table. So my mind is not set on one way or the other. I am a representative of Evanston and will do the very best by Evanston residents.
Thank you. Our next question will be answered first by Darlene Cannon. The question is, can the city work more effectively with local nonprofits to address issues that need expertise from many perspectives?
Yes, I think we can. I think, meeting and collaborating with our local nonprofits and, being able to outline specifically what our needs are of our residents and as a city as a whole. And that takes, gathering data from residents as well to find out, what it is that they need, and finding out, which nonprofits in Evanston can help the residents of, not just simply the 2nd Ward, but the entire city as a whole. So, yes.
Okay. Chrissy Harris?
So as I look at this, one of the things that comes to mind is that Evanston, we have a lot of duplication of services. Everybody thinks they do it better than someone else. And we need to get people at the table to figure out how do we do the job well. Not better than another entity, but how do we do the job well? So that is important, getting the different perspectives, getting the perspectives of the residents who use these services. How do you feel? I just heard some information from a colleague right now that an organization wasn't welcoming. So working with residents who will use these services to understand, is this a welcoming environment? Is this an entity, a nonprofit that does what they say? Are you treated with dignity? Because again, that's one of the main factors is, are we treating people with dignity? Are they not just numbers to push our nonprofit forward? And are we being accountable for the lives? When you first look at it, it's about the lives, not the money. Are we protecting these vulnerable people? And if not, who does it best? Not who says they do it best, but who does it best is most important to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Patricia Gregory?
Yes, and I agree with Ms. Harris. I think accountability is very important. I think that even in duplication of some of these organizations, that people should really look at what they have honestly and then say, how am I serving the people? Is it what they really need, or is it what I just want? Or will it make me look good, or am I actually helping? So I agree with Darlene and Chrissy on this. It's very important to make sure that the needs of the people are being met, because at some point, unless you actually get out as a council member and really see how these organizations operate, you won't know. And you can hear it. It can be word of mouth. But until you go out and actually see how things are being run, it might not ever work.
Thank you. And now we've come to the last question before going to the closing statements. And the last question will be answered first by Chrissy Harris. And the question is, what are the most pressing issues in the Second Ward today?
Thank you. The most pressing issues today, I think we kind of spoke to them earlier, is the economic concerns that we have. We have some new businesses coming, which is very exciting. We have some businesses that are leaving, and that's unfortunate. And some of that was before COVID came. They were slowly making themselves. But I think, again, safety. If the Second Ward is safe, then the Fifth Ward is safe, then the Ninth Ward is safe, then the First Ward is safe. So safety and accountability for residential actions. That looks like personal safety, that looks like traffic safety, that looks like human capital safety, making sure people are taken care of, that property is taken care of. We just had a snowstorm. Kudos to our public works who was out there getting the snow and ice out of the way so that people could travel to and from work safely. Our public, I didn't even see the card, but I'm going to say 30 seconds. I'm sorry. To our property standards, making sure that people are living in safe accommodations and that we're monitoring that. So I think safety is the most overwhelming issue, not only of the Second Ward, but of the city.
Thank you. Patricia Gregory?
Yes, and I agree with Ms. Harris on that one. But like I said earlier, what echoed to me the most in the areas that I went to was parking. And let me see, parking was an issue, and and businesses, trying to keep businesses. What are we doing to retain businesses? I know safety is a big piece because we've had some really bad things happen in the Second Ward with Cadillac converters being taken and shootings. So I think those three things are very important: the parking, the safety of the ward, and what did I say before? Parking, safety, and oh gosh, I can't believe.
I forgot.
Okay, and we'll just leave it at that. Okay.
Thank you. And Darlene Cannon?
Yes, thank you. So yes, safety. We've had 3 shootings in the ward. So making sure that we're doing everything we can as a community to make sure that we're possibly diffusing things before they get to that point, and that ties into youth outreach. And a lot of people have talked about affordability. What can we do to make sure that people are able to stay in their homes? And building community too. Ensure, a lot of times when I talk to people, they say that they've lived there for 30 years, but they don't know the new people in their neighborhood. So making sure that we're building community and that we are communicating with each other, because if a situation occurs, we need to know that we can call our neighbor to ask for help or anything along that line. And then back to affordability, on the Equity Empowerment Commission, we've put through something that's supposed to go to council, which is a predatory developer ordinance, because right now in Evanston, we have developers who are calling residents, asking them to sell their homes and kind of putting pressure on them. And we want to make sure that people are able to stay here and stay here without, harassment as well. So thank you.
Thank you. We've come to the portion of our forum now where we will be moving to closing statements. And the closing statements will be given in the order opposite of the opening statements, which means that Darlene Cannon will go first with her closing statement, followed by Patricia Gregory, and then Chrissy Harris. So you will have 2 minutes for your closing statement, and I'll call upon Darlene Cannon to begin, please.
Okay. So thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come here and hear us talk. I am looking to be the elected official to, I look to co-govern with you. So what I mean by that is that I want to hear from residents. I want to hear what your concerns are, your needs are, and what your visions are as well. I want to collaborate with you. As I previously stated, I was working long in the ward long before I decided to run. And I will continue to work in the ward, work for, residents and, addressing their needs and their concerns. And, thank you. And I'm asking you to please join me. So thanks.
Thank you. Patricia Gregory.
Yes. So I believe in family, neighborhood, and then the ward, and then the city. And I'm looking forward to serving the constituents in the second ward at whatever capacity they need. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chrissy Harris.
She did that short and sweet. So first of all, thank you so much for hosting this forum where everybody gets the opportunity to be seen and heard. I think that's important, that people understand that they have choices. I think that's so important. So thank you. And I thank my fellow people up here for wanting to serve. This is a noble thing to do. It is, as I said early, a job and a half. With that said, I have been serving. I think it's important, as they mentioned, boots on the ground. That's what I do. I go where I'm needed. I go where I think I'm needed. I go where I'm requested to be. And I'm hearing what residents are saying. I'm being collaborative because I think the city gets a bad rap a lot of times, and people don't understand that there's a bunch of emails that say a bunch of different things, and trying to make sure that we manage that appropriately from a city level, but from a resident level as well, because at the end of the day, I pay tax dollars as well, and I'm that resident. So I want to be accountable not only to everybody else, but to myself, and to be a stand-up type of person. So I think that's really important for whoever you have in the seat as a council member. You want somebody who can work with the team, because at the end of the day, I only hold 1 vote out of 9. And if you don't work well with other people, that 1 vote does not carry a lot of weight, and you have to really understand that and be able to work with people and work together for the benefit of the community. It is every time I have to come up here, I have to put Chrissy aside and serve the community, not my best interest, not what I think is right, but what is right and what is moral, and be able to, when I leave this dais, my reputation stand there and be able to account for the decisions that I make. I think I'm that person, and I appreciate everybody coming today.
Thank you. And at this point, I'd like to thank our candidates, Chrissy Harris, Patricia Gregory, and Darlene Cannon. I think the voters of the second ward are very fortunate to have 3 quality people who are very interested in serving the community, and I think you heard that today. So let's give them a big hand. I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters of Evanston for putting on this forum, and to all of the volunteers who worked on it. We had timers, greeters, question sorters, ushers, a lot of others who worked behind the scenes. So thanks to all of the members of the league who put this on. This is not, it may look easy, but there is a lot of work that goes on to put on any kind of candidate forum. So thank you to the league members. And I'd also like to thank the audience for coming out today. This is President's Day weekend. It's a beautiful sunny day. So the fact that you did take the time to come out is very much appreciated, I think, by the candidates and also by fellow citizens. So I hope that you will share what you learned today, and also remember to look at lwve.org to see when the rebroadcast is, so that you can advise people to look at the rebroadcast at their leisure. And most importantly, I'd urge you all to vote and to get your friends and neighbors to vote. Elections are very important. Sometimes they're decided by only a couple of votes, so your vote does count. It's very important. Early voting starts March 20th here in the Civic Center, and the election is on April 4th. So either vote early or vote on Election Day. Not often, but but please do vote. And again, thank you, and have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your weekend.